Imagine, if you were, being one of the most recognizable humans on Earth for, well, a solid decade.
Right.
You've anchored movies that generated literally billions of dollars at the global box office. Your face is plastered on billboards from Tokyo to Times Square. And yet, the entire Hollywood establishment still has absolutely no idea if you are actually, like, a great actor.
It is a profound contradiction, honestly. Yeah. I mean, we usually have a very firm grasp on the capabilities of our A-listers by the time they hit their late 20s.
Exactly.
But in this specific case, the industry is just sort of flying blind.
Welcome to a brand new deep dive, everyone. We are taking a massive stack of analysis today to explore this exact paradox. Our subject is someone you definitely know, Tom Holland.
Right.
He's a guy who is 30 years old, universally beloved, and, almost entirely tied to a single cultural touchstone.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. But here is the hook for you today. This deep dive is not really about Spider-Man. No, it's not. We are completely bypassing the spandex today to look at the incredibly sophisticated, highly underrated acting instrument that exists, well, around that franchise.
Because the broader cultural conversation usually misdiagnoses this kind of career. People tend to look at massive stars trapped in blockbusters and just assume they possess, too much range for the green screen machines they're stuck in.
Right. They view it as this tragedy of a caged artist.
Exactly. But the analysis we're diving into today points to something much more interesting. Holland isn't an actor with too much range who has outgrown the room. He is an actor who is still actively discovering his range. And frankly, he is waiting for a context that will truly test his upper limits.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how the Marvel machine utilized him, or maybe limited him, we have to establish what his baseline talent actually looks like.
Yes, the baseline is crucial.
And to do that, we can't look at his 20s. We have to go way back to when he's a literal kid before anyone knew who he was. Look at his work in The Impossible.
Oh.
He is just 16 years old, playing a character named Lucas, navigating the unimaginable aftermath of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami alongside Naomi Watts.
This right here is ground zero for understanding his actual instrument. I mean, think about the standard cinematic expectation for a child actor in a disaster movie.
It's usually pretty rough.
It is. Directors usually coax one of two reactions out of a teenager. It's either this exaggerated performative bravery where they act like a mini action hero, or it's just constant hysterical crying.
I have to stop you there, though, because when you watch the film, he doesn't do either of those things. But, how does a 16-year-old with zero formal adult dramatic training avoid those traps?
Right.
Is he just freezing on camera, or is this a conscious, deliberate acting choice?
It is intensely deliberate, and honestly, that's what makes it so staggering. He plays it as flat, dissociated survival.
Wow.
Yeah, instead of weeping, he plays a kid who is processing a situation so far outside the bounds of normal human experience that regular emotional vocabulary just shatters entirely.
You can see it in those hospital scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Watch the scenes where he is in the hospital trying to help other survivors. He is making logistical adult decisions. He's organizing things.
Right.
He intuitively understands, as a performer, that if his character stops to actually feel the catastrophe, survival becomes impossible. The character has to lock the trauma away just to put one foot in front of the other.
Naomi Watts actually called this out during production. She noted how unnerving it was to work opposite someone that young who possessed that level of interior stillness.
It really is unnerving.
It blew my mind reading through the analysis of his early work, because it's like watching a rookie point guard who doesn't score the most points, but whose court awareness makes the veteran star players look incredibly good. He's somehow facilitating the entire scene.
That basketball analogy captures the mechanics of his acting perfectly, I think. He is a master of interior specificity under pressure. And, we see this exact same skill just a few years later when he's 19 in Under the Heart of the Sea.
Right, the whaling ship movie.
Yeah. He plays Thomas Nickerson, the youngest crew member on this doomed ship. And he's sharing the screen with absolute heavyweights. I mean, Chris Hemsworth, Cillian Murphy.
But wait, break that down for me. His character is the junior guy on the ship. He has virtually no agency in the plot.
True.
So how is he utilizing that court awareness you mentioned when he's basically just standing in the background while Hemsworth yells at the ocean?
By turning the act of witnessing into an active rather than a passive state. The analysis we're pulling from today points out a crucial pattern here, which they call behavioral economy.
Behavioral economy.
Yeah. Holland's job in that movie isn't to drive the plot. It's to watch seasoned, confident adults make catastrophic mistakes. So his performance entirely exists in his micro-reactions.
Like what?
Well, it's the physical hesitation before grabbing a rope. It's the specific, terrified quality of his eye contact when he looks at Hemsworth. That quiet, internal weight is actually what makes Hemsworth's louder, more dominant theatrical performance legible to the audience. Holland acts is the grounding wire for the bigger actors.
Okay, so once an actor establishes that very specific, quiet, reactive skill set, what happens when you drop them into the most chaotic, deafening cinematic environment on Earth?
You mean Marvel?
Exactly, because that rare ability to internalize trauma and bounce off seasoned actors seems like the exact reason he didn't get swallowed whole by the superhero franchise.
That is the pivotal transition in his career, without a doubt.
Yeah.
The franchise didn't ask him to change his instrument, really. It just took that highly sophisticated tool and forcefully tuned it to one specific frequency.
Which is?
Young, anxious, earnest, and endlessly endearing.
But they threw him into the deep end immediately. Think about his introduction in Captain America: Civil War. He has roughly 11 minutes of total screen time.
Just 11 minutes.
Yeah. And in about 8 of those minutes, before the big tarmac fight even really gets going, he establishes a completely fully formed psychological profile. He communicates the age, the excitable sincerity, but crucially, he makes you believe that this kid genuinely believes in the concept of responsibility.
Which, if we look closely at the mechanics of acting, is incredibly difficult to play.
Oh, for sure.
The line between genuine earnestness and grating naivety on screen is razor thin. Most actors overplay the youth and end up sounding like a literal cartoon.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It's like an eager intern who gets dragged to a corporate retreat, only to realize he's being used as a pawn in a hostile corporate takeover by executives he completely idolizes.
That's a great way to put it.
He thinks it's a fun networking event, but he's actually in the middle of a vicious ideological war between Captain America and Iron Man. And Holland holds both the tragedy of that manipulation and the comedy of his own excitement simultaneously in his physical posture.
Right, and that balancing act becomes the absolute foundation for his solo outings. What he does brilliantly in a movie like Spider-Man: Homecoming is play competence that is desperate for approval.
Desperate for approval.
Yes, and we really need to distinguish that from playing pure confidence because structurally they require entirely different acting choices.
Let's test that theory. To a casual viewer eating popcorn on a Friday night, playing a hyper-competent superhero and playing a confident superhero probably look like the exact same thing. What is the mechanical difference there?
Well, confidence does not care if anyone is watching in the room. A confident character is self-contained.
Okay.
But Holland's Peter Parker desperately cares if Tony Stark is watching.
Yeah.
He knows he has the physical skills, right? He has the reflexes. He understands the physics. But his psychological need is professional recognition from an adult.
Right.
It's a very specific adolescent psychology. And Holland plays it entirely in his posture. He leans into conversations too eagerly. He speaks slightly too fast, trying to match the rhythm of the adults around him.
Which makes the moment when that eagerness is stripped away so shocking. I want to look at the car scene with Michael Keaton, who plays the Vulture, because multiple sources in our stack point to this as the absolute peak of Holland's work inside the franchise.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Keaton's character is driving Peter to a high school dance and slowly, over the course of the conversation, realizes that this kid sitting in his back seat is the superhero who has been dismantling his criminal empire.
And the tension in that sequence isn't driven by special effects at all. It's entirely driven by ocular tension.
Right.
It is just two actors staring at each other through a rearview mirror.
Exactly. And if you watch Holland's face frame by frame as the realization hits Keaton, it's a masterclass. You see real-time, genuine, paralyzing shock hit his eyes. But then, in a split second, that shock converts into the terrifying stillness of concealment.
Yeah.
He realizes his life is in immediate lethal danger, and his jaw physically locks as he tries to hide his fear. The compression of emotional information in that single silent look is staggering. He's accessing the exact same survival stillness he used in The Impossible.
And as the franchise machinery demands bigger and bigger spectacles, he is consistently forced to use that internal stillness as an anchor. Think about Far From Home.
With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, he's exploring this dynamic with Gyllenhaal's character, Mysterio. Holland has to physically embody the uncomfortable adolescent experience of a deep emotional need. You know, the desperate desire for a mentor after losing Tony Stark.
Right.
And that need completely overrides his actual intelligence.
You can almost see his brain telling him something is wrong with Mysterio, But his heart is screaming for a father figure, so he actively chooses to ignore his own instincts.
Right, and this all culminates in No Way Home. This is where we really have to reevaluate how we judge blockbuster acting.
How so?
Well, when people talk about the massive third act of that film, featuring the 3 different iterations of Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, nostalgia entirely hijacked the cultural conversation.
Oh, completely.
Critics and fans poured praise on Maguire and Garfield for their emotional precision.
Well, of course they did. I mean, it's a massive novelty to see them step back into those roles after decades. The audience is primed to applaud everything they do.
True. But if you strip away the nostalgia and look at the structural demands of the script, Holland actually had the hardest architectural job in that entire film.
Really?
Yeah. He had to be the anchor. He was the center of gravity the other 2 veteran actors were orienting toward. The script strips away his usual tonal safety net of optimism and forces him to carry sustained, devastating grief.
Oh, right. Because of what happens to his family in the movie.
Exactly. He had to ground the emotional state of the audience amidst this massive, swirling multiverse spectacle without disappearing into the CGI noise. That requires a level of restraint that looks like, less acting from the outside, but functionally, it's doing so much more heavy lifting for the narrative.
So once an actor has perfected the endearing, anxious kid routine to the tune of billions of dollars, and they feel like they are just carrying the structural weight for other people, how do they prove to the industry that they can be dangerous? They have to intentionally break their own mold, right?
They absolutely do. When an actor is universally beloved for playing a fundamentally decent person, human nature and artistic ambition drive them to swing as violently in the opposite direction as possible.
Right.
They deliberately seek out projects that will actively strain their instrument.
Which brings us to the ambitious misfires. I want to look closely at the movie Cherry.
Okay.
This was directed by the Russo brothers, who directed him in Marvel. But here they are, operating with this maximalist, highly stylized, almost chaotic indie energy. Holland plays a character suffering from severe PTSD who spirals into addiction and eventually starts robbing banks.
That's a huge departure.
It is a massive, aggressive swing.
It's the most deliberate demonstration of range on his resume, without a doubt. But the results are wildly uneven. And if you look at why they are uneven, it is highly instructive regarding his actual talent.
Okay, so what does this all mean for his talent? If you're a skeptical critic looking at this performance, are these uneven results proof that he simply cannot carry dark, complex adult roles? Or is the real issue that the directorial context is actively suffocating his best instincts?
The analysis we're looking at strongly suggests it's the latter. It's a fundamental clash of styles.
Oh, so?
Well, the performance is absolutely brilliant when it is quiet. When he is playing the early internal stages of PTSD with that behavioral specificity we talked about earlier, he's phenomenal.
Right.
But the performance visibly strains when it has to compete with a highly stylized, propulsive direction. The directors are working so aggressively to visually communicate trauma, using wild camera angles, loud music, chaotic edits, that Holland's quiet, interior work gets completely drowned out by the cinematic noise.
But there's that one specific sequence that our sources single out as a total revelation, the bank robbery scenes. When the cinematic noise finally drops away and the camera just watches him work, we see a completely new register. He plays those robberies with a cold, dissociated competence.
It's chilling.
There is a total absence of his trademark affability. His eyes are dead, he's not charming, he's not anxious, he's just coldly functional in a deeply disturbing way. It proves, without a doubt, that he can access that charismatic danger, the kind of underlying menace you see in a Daniel Craig or a Tom Hardy.
Exactly. It's a frequency the MCU explicitly forbade him from using. And we saw a very similar dynamic play out in television with his Apple series, The Crowded Room.
Oh, right.
It serves as a perfect companion piece to Cherry when diagnosing his current career limitations. He plays Danny Sullivan, a character with dissociative identity disorder. Inherently, this is a massively demanding role because the actor has to track multiple conflicting internal states simultaneously.
And again, if you watch the early episodes, it starts incredibly strong. The fragmentation of his mind is shown through subtle physical inconsistencies.
Yes, the small details.
A slight shift in how he holds his shoulders. A change in his vocal cadence. He plays it with careful attention, making it feel like a coherent, terrifying internal experience rather than just a loud theatrical performance of psychiatric symptoms.
But as the series progresses into the later episodes, the script and the direction demand loud exterior declarations of his alternate identities. It asks for massive theatricality.
Right.
And that exposes the gap between Holland's greatest strength, which is quiet interiority, and the slow accumulation of emotion, and what the directors were demanding, which was stylized, almost operatic exteriority.
So the directors are basically asking a master portrait painter to suddenly start doing loud, abstract expressionism.
That's a brilliant way to phrase it.
But even inside that mixed execution, there's a saving grace that proves your point about his baseline. Look at the interview scenes in that show with Amanda Seyfried, who plays the psychologist interrogating him.
Those scenes are the absolute highlight of the series because they isolate his most reliable foundational trait, his absolute precision and responsiveness.
Yes.
He is, and has always been since he was 16 years old, the best person in the room at receiving another actor's energy and generating something incredibly specific from that reception. When Seyfried leans in and gives him a subtle emotional cue to work with, his response is immediate, honest, and grounded. He thrives on friction.
But generating that friction requires a willing partner. When an actor exhausts themselves trying to project loud theatricality in these heavy indie dramas, human nature usually drives them back to what feels safe, right?
Yeah, of course.
They retreat to the pure, physical, reaction-based acting of popcorn cinema just to catch their breath.
Exactly, which is the perfect lens through which to view his decision to do Uncharted. It is a globe-trotting commercial product that explicitly prioritizes action set pieces over deep character development.
Definitely.
It is the definition of a commercial retreat.
So he's starring opposite Mark Wahlberg. Now, structurally, this dynamic is supposed to mirror his Marvel relationship with Robert Downey Jr. It's designed to be the younger, energetic, slightly naive performer bouncing off an established, cynical veteran screen presence.
But there is a massive mechanical difference in the execution here. At this stage in his career, Wahlberg is playing a very static archetype.
Right.
He is giving considerably less energy back to his scene partner than Downey Jr. did. Downey was constantly tossing improvisational gifts and emotional shifts to Holland. Wahlberg is essentially a brick wall.
It's literally like playing tennis against a brick wall instead of a human partner.
That's exactly it.
If you watch Holland in that movie, especially in the massive set pieces like the cargo plane sequence, he is out there sweating. He is putting in immense physical work. He is desperately trying to rally and create banter, but he's having to generate all the centrifugal force entirely on his own because the wall just isn't giving him any momentum back.
And while the critical conversation at the time used Uncharted as evidence of arrested development for Holland, claiming he was stuck playing the teenage action star, our stack of analysis suggests that is a vast misreading of what is actually happening on screen.
I see what you're saying, but how is doing a generic treasure hunting movie not a step backward?
Because it actually proves two vital things about his baseline as a performer today. First, it highlights his incredible physical fluency, which was relentlessly trained by the franchise logic. He is a phenomenal physical actor.
That's true.
And second, it proves his professional habit of high investment. Even when the film doesn't ask him to dig any deeper than his basic franchise training, and even when his scene partner isn't matching his output, Holland still vibrates with excess energy. He physically does not know how to phone it in.
He cares almost too much.
He does.
He is treating a popcorn movie with the earnest physical dedication of a stage play. So if we take all of these pieces that we've analyzed today, the pre-franchise prodigy who understood trauma at 16, the MCU anchor who played competence desperate for approval, the ambitious misfires where his quiet interiority fought against maximalist erection, and the commercial comfort zone where he is desperately trying to generate energy against a brick wall. If we zoom all the way out, what is the ultimate takeaway here?
The ultimate takeaway is that we are looking at an actor who has been quietly, vastly more sophisticated than his default popular choices advertise. He possesses a quality of interior precision that massive commercial products simply have the least use for.
He literally built 3 full films worth of consistent emotional character development inside a superhero genre that usually treats human characters just as meat sacks meant to deliver exposition between explosions.
Yeah.
I mean, he made that grief in No Way Home feel completely, undeniably earned. And yet, because he is consistently better at absorbing and responding to other performers than he is at generating all the force alone, the true depth of his talent is incredibly easy to miss if you aren't paying close attention to the mechanics of his choices.
Which is exactly why you, the listener, should care about tracking this career moving forward. You are watching a generational talent unfold in real time, but crucially, You are watching a talent who is yet to be placed in a room built specifically to test his upper limits.
Right.
The architecture hasn't been built yet.
We've been tracing the boundaries of a map that is still actively being drawn. And that leaves us with a lingering question for you to chew on as you watch whatever he decides to do next. If Tom Holland's absolute greatest superpower as an actor is his unmatched ability to respond to the energy of other titans in the room, what is going to happen on screen the day he is finally forced to be the one who generates the center of gravity entirely on his own?
That's a great question.
What happens when there is no Naomi Watts, no Robert Downey Jr., and no superhero suit to hide behind, and he has to draw the new territory himself?
That is the frontier he is currently circling, and honestly, the ceiling is genuinely unknown.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's always a pleasure to unpack these complex cultural paradoxes and look past the surface level with you. Keep questioning the performances you see on screen, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.